Good morning, everyone. I'm Bill Green, Executive Director of the Maine Sports Hall of Fame, and I'm delighted to be bringing to you the third webinar in our series. We've joined forces with Masthead Maine, which is essentially a Maine newspapers led by the Portland Press Herald, to try to connect some of the expertise that's around our great state with some of the kids who are fighting through the pandemic, the hard way, educationally. And we got three world-known figures here today. And I'll start with, to do it alphabetically, I guess I'll go with Chris Cassidy, who's now a NASA astronaut. But he grew up in New York, became a Navy SEAL, was twice deployed to the Mediterranean and Afghanistan, received a Bronze Star with Combat V for leading a 9-day operation at the Jawar Kili Cave on the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. He then became an astronaut and has flown in space 3 times. He's commanded an expedition 63, served as chief astronaut, and is tied for second in the world in terms of total spacewalks with 10. Now, next is Patrick Dempsey, best known as an actor, but he's here for a real legit reason today. His role of Dr. Derek Shepherd for 11 seasons on Grey's Anatomy probably didn't respect his acting talent enough because he became known as McDreamy, but that's a role that most of us guys aspire toward and has certainly earned him immortality in Hollywood. But his list of roles is just fantastic. His new series, Devils, is currently on the CW, and it's just tremendous. He's also writing a series for CBS called Ways and Means. He's a superb cyclist and a Grand Prix race car driver, having competed in such places as Monte Carlo and Le Mans. Sorry about my French. And Joan Samuelson grew up in Cape and went to Bowdoin, as well as North Carolina State. She was a 4-time All-American runner. She's won everything. The Sullivan Award, emblematic of the outstanding amateur athlete in America, winner of the Boston, Chicago marathons, best known for winning the Olympic marathon against an extremely talented field, the first Olympic marathon for women. She's held the American records at 10K, half marathon, marathon, and world best in the half marathon and marathon. And perhaps even more importantly, in our first webinar, we talked about social justice in sports. Joan is very widely respected for the great work that she's done in our environment and so much more. So welcome to our 3 panelists. And I guess and also our moderator today is going to be Travis Lasarchik, who is a well-known writer for the Central Maine newspapers and the 2019 Maine Sports Writer of the Year. But I'll take the first question and ask each of you the importance of fitness in your professional lives.
Sure.
I guess
Chris.
any order. Okay, I'll start with that. What I've learned from traveling to space actually several times is if we do nothing while we're in space, the absence of gravity takes our bone density to drastic low levels, and that's the same as the aging here on Earth. And so that's really set in my mind the importance of for the longevity, health in our later years, to have strong bones. And to have strong bones, the best thing we can do is have a good, healthy fitness routine, to include weightlifting, and not to be a huge muscle-bound person, but to have just a good, healthy, lean body. And so that's really the driver for me at this stage in my life. Earlier in my life, I thought it was just cool to be fit and hang and be able to run next to the SEALs that were next to me and dream about being as fast as Joan. But at this stage in my life, it's all about health as I age.
Patrick.
Well, I'll pick up on what Chris said, and I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's important, especially for the student athletes in high school who are looking to go on to college and perhaps compete at the college and university level, to maintain fitness, not only as they transfer from high school to college, but then think about what's going to happen post-collegiately, and to find a sport or find a training regime that enables them to carry health, wellness, and fitness throughout their lifetimes. And for me, I happen to pick one sport that served me well, and that's the sport of running, because it truly is a lifelong activity for many people. And you have to have a pretty good excuse not to get out there and walk or run. So the thing about running is it's very affordable and accessible for all sorts of populations of people. And that's why I'm delighted to be part of that sport and that family of people.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, certainly activity is really good for your mental wellness. And I think when I notice if I'm in sort of lockdown now mode and I have to do little things in the room, but if you do an exercise, you go for a walk like Joan talked about, or the running, you can get that out there. Biking, it's a little bit more of a commitment and you have to get everything organized, but the mental wellness of the exercising is really critical moving forward. And I think whatever we can do, even if we're in a hotel room, you have your workout regime that you can adapt to the situation that you're living in. And also too, just as an actor, it's a visual medium. So you have to be in shape, and also just mentally, you feel stronger if you're doing a 15, 16-hour day. By the end of that day, you really need to be strong physically to keep those hours not affecting your work.
Travis.
Got to unmute myself there. Sorry. Joan, there's such a fine line between like finding that sweet spot where you're just really going at a peak and kind of overdoing it and, pushing your body maybe too hard. How have you over the years found, the way to find that spot and not overdo it?
Well, I tell people that it's very important to find a balance in your life. And when I say that, I mean, in athletics, we talk about the mind, body, spirit triad, and it's very important to keep those three components of the triangle in balance. So walking that fine line is very difficult. And I had the knee injury before the trials in 1984, and I had the arthroscopic procedure 17 days before the actual trial, and people had written me off. But I think that injury was a blessing in disguise, because I think I would have overtrained and gone over the edge before the actual competition. So it was hard to accept the injury at the time, but in hindsight, it's a good thing it happened, because I was training so well and I was still about 2 months out from the actual trial when things started to unravel. So walking that fine line is very difficult. You have to listen to your body. There's an adage in all the Nike buildings on the Nike campus out in Oregon that says, listen to the voice of the athlete. And I think that is so true, because even coaches and agents and whomever can't get inside the body and the head of the athlete. So you really have to listen to yourself. And I tell people all the time, and I took a lot of grief for breaking from the pack early in LA in '84, but I wasn't running my own race. I was running their race, and I needed to run my own race. And people just in every walk of life need to realize that it takes a village, takes a team effort, but in the end, you really have to listen to how you're feeling and how you're responding to workouts and the like.
I want to jump in here. Strawberry, could you cue the video of Joan in LA? Well, what Joan is talking about, she was perhaps an early favorite in the Olympic marathon, but then had an operation on her knee to remove some cartilage. It was a scope, if I remember correctly. And then when they came to the starting line with a tremendous field, Greta Waitz and Rosa Mota and Ingrid Christensen, I think were all there. We were coming out of the running boom of the 70s. Joan was perhaps a favorite, but had had that operation, got to the trial 17 days later, and I think won it, but did qualify. And then when she got to the Olympic marathon at mile 4, she broke away from this powerful pack and ran by herself for 22 miles, which was about 2 hours. And here she is entering the stadium, the Coliseum in Los Angeles. What a great place, because it was built to replicate the Coliseum of Rome. And there she is, and this is a great metaphor, going into the darkness of the tunnel and coming out into the light in a changing world. And I'll just shut up and let you listen to what happened that day. 77,000 people on hand. And I guess we don't hear the roar of the crowd. I've got my earbuds in. Patrick, do you remember that? Chris, do you remember that? I remember that day so well.
Absolutely remember that day so distinctly. I think such a big, not only for you, Joan, but just for the state of Maine and just you're going out like that. I remember the commentators were going, how is this going to work out? And it was really one of those seminal moments in my life watching something like that. Someone from Maine achieving a goal like this was really very moving. To this moment still is.
And for me, I didn't know that she was from Maine until that the latter part of that marathon when I tuned in as a young guy. And I was just so inspired that somebody from my in the Coliseum representing our nation and winning the medal inspired me greatly.
And as a historic note, that's Greta Feitz coming into the stadium. And the interesting thing, Joan kind of had her by a lap, but that was also a historic moment for Maine because before that time, we only had one medalist. A guy named Rip Black won a hammer throwing bronze medal in 1928. And since that time, we've had a number of athletes who have achieved world-class status. Have been, Ellie Logan, Wyatt Allen have been rowing for gold medals, and Billy Swift, I guess, was in the same Olympics. So in baseball, but it was a moment for Maine in that we moved kind of into the national echelon. It was a sensational moment, Joan, that I wanted to show the kids here today.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Bill, but my claim to fame is really having babysat for Seth Westcott. When I was at NC State, his father recruited me to come down there and run, and occasionally would ask me to come over and babysit for his two children, Seth and Sarah. And fast forward many, many years when our son enrolled in a snowboarding camp at Sugarloaf and came home and said, Mom, you never told me you babysat for Seth Westcott. I said, what are you talking about? He said when we lived in North Carolina, you'd come over and babysit. And I never put two and two together. So I kid Seth all the time when I see him that I took care of him during his formative years.
We were wondering why he made it. I'm sure without that babysitting, he would have been nothing. But I want to say to the kids watching, Maine's a big, small town. And as you leave your high schools, we all seem to connect again and again and again. So don't ever say anything bad about anybody because you're probably talking to their cousin or at least a good friend here in Maine. Travis, what's next for a question?
Well, Bill, we have a couple of questions coming in the Q&A, and they're around about the same kind of thing for all the panelists. Advice for students looking for motivation to stay fit and healthy during a pandemic, and just staying motivated in general.
Let's keep the same order. Chris, Patrick, Joan.
Okay. Yeah, for me, the key there is routine.
Yeah.
I find when I was on the space station, I had a nice routine. Somebody took care of it for me, and then I came home into the pandemic, and I just sort of lounged around for a little bit because I wanted to, and then I realized that I was really slacking off, and so now I'm kind of just sticking to. This is my time when I like to work out. Kind of mid-morning for me, but it doesn't really matter when it is. You pick the time. And kind of like Patrick was saying, you really don't need much. You get your running shoes, or if you're in your hotel room, you don't even need those, and you have gravity, and you can do squats and push-ups, and because you have to fill the void where you can't go to your favorite gym. And I didn't appreciate that until I got back. I keep saying I got back. Bill, I left the planet at the beginning of COVID and was off all the way until October when I got home. So when the rest of the world had adjusted to life in a pandemic with masks and social distancing and the new pace of life and all of this virtual meetings, that was what I was doing in October, and realizing that, yeah, you can just fill the void of your favorite gym with pretty much anywhere. And the outdoors is a great place. And we're fortunate in Maine to have amazing access to outdoor activity. So.
Patrick.
Yeah, I think I just want to follow up on the routine is really important. If you can get up every morning around the same time, especially if you're doing a lot of Zoom school, things like that, you're a little bit more in control. And I really find if I can get into a routine and I can do that every day, I look forward to it, and that motivates me and I can build on it. And it's just simple stuff. If it's like get outside, go for a walk, or if I have a Zoom call I have to do, maybe just listen to it and go for a walk so I'm active. If it's around the time I usually schedule, and then just trying to stay and maintain what I have, which would be sit-ups, push-ups, squats, anything I can do in the room. And then I want to really ask Joan, if we haven't been running, what's the best way to get up and get started in a gentle way for our body? I mean, I'm a little bit older, so the impact's a little harder, but the younger students that we're talking to probably won't be struggling with that. But getting motivated to get started, how many miles, how far, how do we get going?
Well, I think I just saw the poll come across our screens about, do you prefer to exercise in the morning, afternoon, or evening? And for me, it's definitely the morning because it wakes me up, as you say, Patrick, and it allows me time to prioritize my day, and it's my creative time. It's when I think about what's important as far as my goals are concerned and what's important as far as impacting the community and my family in a positive way. And I think that, you know, you just need to get out there and feel good about yourself. I'm much more productive after I've run than before, or engaging in something beforehand. My focus just isn't what it normally is. I think for young student athletes, it's important to keep, especially during this time of COVID, a log that keeps that routine going for them. What did they do today? What did they expect to do tomorrow? And what are their goals for the week? What are their goals for the month? For a lot of students who aren't able to engage in competitive competitions, it's tough because you just keep wondering, when are you going to have the chance to really see where your fitness level is and how you're working with your team, et cetera, et cetera. But exercising first thing in the morning and following that routine, I agree with Chris and Patrick. It's so important, and a log will help you if you're struggling with that.
Joan, I've always felt that gym was great fun. Physical education was great fun. But in modern times, it almost would seem to me, and this is this weird dream and thought pattern that I've had, that we should take physical education in school and make it more about personal exercise programs and nutrition, and also experiencing Maine outdoors. And it's kind of the kind of thing we talk about, rather than have bombardment, which was a game of knockout that you play with a kickball. You know, you throw it, hit the other guy, and he's out. That we have like a course in physical personal fitness that we try to get to people at a younger age than I tried to learn it, to bring a higher quality of life, because they would be fit, they'd make better choices about eating, which I never do. I'm a little better now than I was, but I go to a restaurant now and I actually think about taking a healthy choice, not the one with the most gravy. And also the access to the outdoors in Maine, the big time sports in a lot of ways is outdoors, with our Appalachian Trail, with our Allagash Wilderness, with our ocean, with all that stuff. And I'd like to kind of integrate that in physical education. I don't have an idea of how to do it. I have some ideas. What do you think of those random thoughts that I'm bombarding you with?
Well, I think you're right on target, Bill. I think especially here in the great state of Maine, when we have all these natural resources that welcome physical activity. I mean, I think we could use our state parks in a much better way to promote physical activity and wellness. There are all sorts of opportunities that really haven't been tried and tested yet. To have success in any endeavor, and I think Chris and Patrick will agree, you have to be passionate about what it is you're pursuing. And if you're not passionate, what I like to tell young people all the time is, if you don't have passion, you don't have fire. And if you don't have fire, you can't ignite anything. And so to go to a routine physical fitness or physical ed class and not have any passion for whatever the sport or the physical activity is during that semester or whatever, you're not going to engage the kids. Get them outside. There have been numerous campaigns in the state, even way back when I was on the Governor's Council for Physical Fitness. Take it outside. LL Bean, be an outsider. We have so many opportunities here in the great state of Maine, and many of those are exemplified in Patrick's recent ad.
Patrick, I wish I had that queued up. I don't. I'm sorry about that, but it's a Poland Spring ad, and it has some very wonderful sentiments expressed. Chris, what are your thoughts? Do you see any difference between I know you're forced to live in Houston, Texas right now as a NASA astronaut. Any difference between, I don't know, life, fitness, activity there and here?
Yeah, actually, a tremendous difference, and it's in Houston. Again, don't want to bash the state I currently live in, but you can drive for an hour and a half and still be on the same concrete slab effectively. And here in Maine, you can drive for an hour and a half, and you go in one direction. You're 2 states away. You go and from my house in York, and you go another direction, go north, and you're like only a third of the way into the state. So with that, really, there's no bike trails are not super challenging down there. It's just kind of meandering paths through residential areas in Texas. And when I come home, I really appreciate just cool hiking trails. And my wife and I were walking on the coast in Kittery yesterday, and just appreciating the smells and you're on the coast and you're in the woods, and then you're back to the coast, and just kind of, and gosh, it's the state offers so much. And then you think about the Appalachian Trail and how it connects all the way to Georgia, and Maine is often the ending point for those folks. We don't have anything like that in Texas. So I just really appreciate Maine greatly when I come back here.
Patrick, I'd like to ask you about your schedule because it's ridiculous. You're working, and I know how creative people are. You get on the set and you've got another take to do, and there's 17 takes. I don't see how you discipline yourself to continue to to work out and stay in shape, and yet there's a million people looking at you every day. Is there a psychological approach to your fitness and being an actor and being a famous person that you might not have had when you were starting out here in the state of Maine?
Well, I started out and, I really very much wanted to be a ski racer. That was my goal in life. And then through, watching the up close and personal specials that ABC would have, Inmar Stenmark was riding the unicycle, and I thought that would improve my balance for skiing. So it's always been around that. So to answer your question, if I have a goal, if I'm going to be doing something, if I'm going to either be competing or I'm doing an event where it's requiring some sort of physical conditioning, that helps me a lot. And then I'm getting the result of all of that. That helps me in front of the camera. But I need a goal. I need an activity, an event to do. And certainly with Maine, I just got back. I was there for a week just in place, and you can get out. And what's beautiful is the seasons. There's so many opportunities to be active, like cross-country skiing, or just walking in the woods in the snow is a great workout with boots without snowshoes, things like that, modifying your workout for the seasons. And, I just try to take what I have, where I am, wherever I'm shooting, and use the natural environment and go from there.
What would you recommend for a high school student, college student, about developing and maintaining a personal exercise program?
Well, like, what do you like to do? What are the sports that you like to do? And like, I think to Joan's point, you have to be passionate, you have to be committed, because there is a certain required sacrifice to get and realize your goals. And if you don't have a passion for it, you're not going to sacrifice. And I think that's the thing, is what sport do you like? What are your goals? And you just feel better at the end of the day. I think when I get up, I do my workout in the morning, it takes that night fog away. You're a little bit sharper in your first meeting, you're on point. And I think that's important to do. So that would be my advice, is what do you love doing? What sport do you like doing? And even if it's just walking, get out and walk, shut your phone off, and just let the environment talk to you. And you'll get inspiration there. And you'll start to hear things inside yourself that will direct you in the right direction that you're looking to go in.
I'm
What
sorry,
Patrick
Travis.
is just saying, and what Joan was talking about earlier, kind of gets to the latest question in our Q&A. People are wondering what motivates you to work out. It sounds like it's finding that thing you're passionate about and really going for it. And so I'll ask you, Patrick, what got you into cycling and what developed your passion with that sport?
Cycling really helps the lower body, and certainly with the racing. And my goal was to get to Le Mans. And I found that was really helped my situational awareness. There are a lot of similarities, certainly in a descent or when you're in a group ride, that is developing those mental skills that you need to race when you're in multiple classes. And I liked the cycling. I liked getting out and the sound of it, the feeling of it, the ability to recover in the speed. So those were the things that I was gravitating to, which is the skiing and cross country skiing in the winter, things like that, downhill skiing. It all helps me stay in shape so that I can go out and enjoy these sports with my kids. You know, and the older I get, if I miss a week, you know, my body starts to atrophy. I fall back very quickly. So it's much harder. So if I can maintain a baseline, then that moment when I get back into an intense training program, it's not so debilitating emotionally for me because you're starting over and you got to get back into that desire to suffer to get to the other side so that you're at the place you want to be physically to enjoy things at the highest level.
How hard is it to maintain that when you're like filming a movie or a show? I mean, you've mentioned it, those are long days. How hard is it to, you know, find time to get on the bike?
It's really hard to get on the bike. So you have to do things in your trailer. And then on the weekends, you have to do it. So as long as you can do something in the morning, and we get back to routine is so important, especially with a 15 or 16 hour day when you're working. And then during the course of the day, I will do, okay, so this break, I have 20 minutes. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to focus on push-ups for 20 minutes. Then the next break, I'll do my sit-ups or whatever. I'll just dissect a different body part along the course of that day. And at least it keeps me tuned up. Am I getting the muscle growth that I want? No. But am I getting to stabilize my body? Yes.
Strawberry, let's take a look at Patrick's. Speaking of trailers, this is a different type of trailer, but I want to show the audience the trailer that we have from Devils. It's a good show, and it's a strong role for Patrick. Dominic Morgan, is he a good guy or is he a bad guy? Let's take a look at it.
You know how proud I am.
Not seeing anything. Well, the good thing is I'm about to get off. I'm starting to, as soon as I finish up here in New York, I'm off to Rome to start season 2 of Devils. And we're dealing with this season a lot with the AI and accumulating the data and how that affects business and certainly finance in the world. So it should be interesting.
I'm sorry we couldn't run that for you. I don't want, this is about fitness, but hey, you look fit as Dominic Morgan. I think it's Dominic Morgan, right?
Yeah, Dominic Morgan. Yeah, so over there, it's been really fun because there's a lot of Formula One drivers in Italy. So they're all living in the area. So I get to train with them and that's been really exciting. So the schedule is slightly different in Italy. So I have the morning workout and I get to train with the athletes who are really inspiring to me. So that's what I'm looking forward to going over to shoot, is the ability to stay within that mindset and to be in an environment where you're training with people who are professional. It really helps you across the board.
What are you doing in New York? Are you not doing Devils in New York?
No, I'm doing Devils in Italy and I'm doing Ways and Means, the pilot, which we were starting a year ago. We got shut down due to COVID. We started shooting and then once again, we had one positive test with a crew member. We had to shut down for another 14 days. So it's been an exercise to just, stay positive through the course of the setbacks.
And you wrote that, and you're also executive producer of Ways and Means.
Didn't write it. I didn't write it, but I am an executive producer on it. So the idea came about, and then we sort of developed the idea, and we're trying to execute that and see what we have, and we'll know in a few months if it goes on air or not.
Chris Cassidy, what do you do for fun when you're not astronauting? when you get out of work, what do you do?
Well, you asked about what's your motivation, and I thought I had like this pure motivation to exercise, but I have to come clean. I have a Peloton bike now, and now my motivation is this scrolling list of people that I'm virtually racing against, and I see like a 50-year-old from Austin kind of advancing past me, or a 40-year-old from Maine. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to let that person beat me. So I have this newfound motivation that is not to let people of similar age beat me on the Peloton bike. And like Patrick, I really enjoy bike riding tremendously, and that's one way I can do it in my house. And not necessarily endorsing Peloton, although I think it's fantastic. But you can get a similar workout with anything, but what I really like is that virtual competition. And what Patrick said resonated with me is getting back to the feeling of wanting to suffer. And it takes sessions where you just kind of let yourself go to and I'd be curious to hear Joan's thoughts on that feeling of that idea of suffering to get to the other side. I'm sure that existed in the height of her career. And I think there's even a bicycle website out there called Sufferfest or something. So that tells you that it's all part of it to push. And I'm not saying you have to suffer to be fit in life, but you have to find your inner competition to push you to the edge and kind of keep you. If you never allow yourself to get to that edge, whatever it is for your personal self, you never advance the frontier of your fitness. And so you have to be comfortable with kind of hanging out there for at least 10, 15 minutes.
Joan?
So Chris, just don't go after the 60-plus-year-old from Maine. I hate that machine. I'm saying, how are these younger women, giving me a push? And, I'm coming back from a surgery right now, and I'm not supposed to put any resistance on the bicycle. And it just kills me because I think I ranked at the bottom of the pile in a recent workout because I couldn't use any resistance and I had to watch my cadence. And I must say I'm turning into a closet cyclist, and I'm even getting a little brazen because my knee pretty much went down with COVID in March. I was hanging on to run London in April, and all the Abbott World majors closed down because of the virus. So I turned to the bike, and I must confess I'm loving it. And today is the day to get out, but I don't think I'm quite there to get on a bicycle on the road. But like Patrick, I had dreams of making it to the US ski team. I loved to ski when I was young, and my dad had served in the 10th Mountain Division during the war. And, I broke my leg ski racing during my sophomore year in high school, and I started to run as a form of rehab. And I just found that I loved it. I loved the challenge of going longer and longer distances at faster and faster paces. So there are silver linings in injuries and in disappointments, and you just have to look on the positive side of things, especially again for the student athletes who are suffering a great deal right now because they can't compete, they can't go after their goals, and just realize, there's going to be a silver lining after this pandemic is behind us. And I think we're going to see a surge in the number of people who are running just because, as Patrick said earlier, it's a way to get out there and build some self-esteem and feel better about your health and wellness, and join a community of other people who are seeing the same benefits from getting outside and exercising. I know on our road in rural suburban Maine in Freeport that it's like a parade of people walking down the road at all hours of the day. And I just think when the roads open again for us, the numbers are going to go through the roof.
I want to ask a question, and I want the high school kids, I hope that this isn't too boring a question for you, but when you're in high school or college, it's all set up for you. You get out of class, practice is at 3, be dressed on the field, you get out at 5. Then when you become an adult on your own out of school, you have to kind of establish a program for yourself, or you have to join something to get with other people of like minds. And then as you get older, you get beyond the point that you can run your personal records, run PRs and things. And so you go up through the age groups. And for me, it's hard to go out like I was, I ran a sub 70 10 miler that I was pretty proud of Bowdoin and back years ago. I couldn't come close to a sub 70 10 miler today. And so what about psychologically, as you age, I want to impress this in this kids' minds that they should be aware of the fact that there's another purpose for exercise. Or how do you rationalize, like Joni, you were trying to run a sub 3-hour marathon as opposed to a 2:21.
Right. So in Boston in 2019, I had a goal of running within 40 minutes of my time 40 years earlier in Boston. And I achieved that goal. But for me, it's all about storytelling. I try to come up with a story that will motivate me to go out and accomplish a goal or an aspiration. And, you know, I was going to end my career in 2008 with the Olympic trials in Boston. I'd started my career in Boston in 79, and I thought, what an appropriate way to go out in Boston with an Olympic trial at the age of 50 plus. And my goal was to run a sub 250, and I achieved that goal, fortunately. And that was going to be the end of my career. And then the following fall, I received a call from Mary Wittenberg, who was the then president of the New York Roadrunners. And she said, Joni, how would you like to come to New York to celebrate our 40th anniversary and the 25th anniversary of your Olympic win? And I said, well, that tells a story. And the next year it was Chicago, which was on 10-10-10, which was the 25th anniversary of my fastest time. And I said, well, that tells a story. And then it was on to Athens because it was the 25th, 100th anniversary of the Battle of Marathon. And I had to be part of that if I was a marathoner. And so the storytelling continues, and that's what keeps me motivated. So it's up to the individual to come up with a story that will motivate he or she to go on. And I just find that storytelling is an invaluable tool in really any sector of society.
We have some questions kind of building up here, so want to ask one for everybody. Baxter asked, who were some of your mentors and the lasting impressions they left on you?
Chris Patrick Jones.
Okay. Yep. So, you know, I've had really kind of two phases of my career, one in the Navy doing SEAL team stuff and one at NASA doing astronaut stuff. And in that regard, I've really been fortunate to have been exposed to sort of two sets of mentors. And early in my career in the Navy, there was this one commanding officer I had and one chief who was very formative to me and kind of steering me in the direction, not only in how to conduct my professional life, but also how to stay fit and stay strong. And in the SEAL teams, you have to stay fit, obviously, but it's really what I found we gathered from this group exercise every morning was the camaraderie. And when you're playing York versus Marshwood on football, you have this innate sense of team and camaraderie because it's your school versus theirs. But as you age in life and you advance on from high school and collegiate sports, it's a vacuum that you realize that you really longed for, is this sense of unity, sense of team, sense of cohesion. And I was very fortunate in the SEAL teams. Every morning from 7:30 to 9:30 was PT, and it was competitive. We pushed each other, but at the end, when you're all slobbery and sweaty and it's, you're heading to the showers at 9:15, we really formed this tight bond, and that's what makes units effective, whether it's in the military or a team or a business entity. When you're firing all together for the common goal and a common mission, whatever that mission is, you're very effective. And I think that sports and fitness is a great way to fill that all throughout life.
Yeah, I think to follow up with that is that camaraderie is what motivates you. And certainly when I was racing with my teammates and getting ready for races, is that it's the camaraderie that really motivates you. Working together as a team, training as a team, those things are really good. So I think once you get out of school is to find your group that you can train with. If you have an event that you want to do, if there's a ride that you want to do, or there's a run, or you're just doing something with a local soccer club or something like that, to stay with your group, because the camaraderie really makes it fun to go out and train, and time goes by a lot faster.
Okay, that kind of gets to another question we had. Things like the Dempsey Challenge and Beach to Beacon get so many people out there and active. What kind of advice would you give these students to get their peers to get out there with them?
Well, I think I just talked about it a little bit. If I can continue with that, it's like, if you've been impacted by cancer, most of us have, or someone in your family, that's the motivation to get out there and, to celebrate life too, to remind ourselves why we're here. And it's a good cause. It's a great opportunity. And the whole reason behind the challenge was to get people active so they felt better about themselves physically, and then that would help you emotionally, and also to raise money for the people who can't get out there and accept, and experience what we're experiencing. So get a group of people together and pick some goals and start to train for it. I think these things are great, and it brings that camaraderie, and you're doing something outside yourself. And I think the philanthropic work is probably the most meaningful stuff in life. Giving back to your community, no matter how much success you have, this is really what is the most important thing in life. And this is an opportunity to get the best of both worlds by being physical, being active, and having a sense of community that does something that's transformative for people.
Well, just to follow up on Patrick, my usual place during the Beach to Beacon is right on the other side of the finish line. And it's really exciting to watch the elite runners come through. But what is really moving is to watch the people in the back of the pack come across the finish line. And these are the people who never thought they'd be able to go the distance. And to see the faces of elation and jubilation, it just feels so good. Because they're setting a challenge for themselves. And when they cross that finish line and achieve something they thought was nearly impossible, it just sets them on a way for a much more positive and fulfilling life.
Joan, we have a question from an anonymous guest who wants to know if there's an update on the status for the Beach to Beacon this year.
We have a meeting on March 1st, so we and they should know more after that date.
Joan, I want to mention Ben True of North Yarmouth ran 27:14 out in San Juan Capistrano Saturday night. It's the fastest 10K ever run by a Mainer. And he certainly meets the Olympic standard with that. So
yeah, that's very exciting. And I hope Tokyo happens. I was on another Zoom yesterday with a diversity in sport group. And the question was asked, and Edwin Moses was actually on the call as well. And will Tokyo happen? And I think we all agreed that it will happen. There will be very few spectators, and some of the sports may not take place, but I would hope that outdoor track and field can take place. I mean, they're 6 feet apart in their lanes, right? Maybe not in the pack, but Ben's been so close so many times, and I know Ben well. His parents live right down the road, and I sure hope he gets the opportunity to go to Tokyo.
great. Travis?
We have another question. How did injuries or setbacks affect your motivation level? Just for anybody.
I've been very fortunate. I haven't had any injuries, whether it was in my military life or my personal life. So I'll defer that. Now, setbacks, not necessarily in a physical world, but like in terms of accomplishing a goal, that kind of all falls into the same realm. You just have to regroup. In the geeky NASA world, we say just get the data and make decisions on the data. But again, I'm not talking about physical. So I'll defer to maybe Joan or something, or Patrick that has the injury.
Yeah, I think Joan, you're going through that right now. So I think your insight would be beneficial.
It's tough. And I had a big decision to make before the surgery. Did I want to continue doing some of the things that made me happy, or did I want to try to continue all of the things that made me happy? And I wasn't really able to run, and I wasn't able to skate ski, and I wasn't able to hike downhill. And for me, that makes my life fulfilling. And so I took the chance and went through with this surgery, and the surgeons were happy, and I just have to be good now and be patient. I'm not a very good patient, but I still have those stories that I want to tell, and those stories to still be told are motivating me to be as patient as I possibly can. But you learn something from every injury and setback, and they really do make you stronger. I'm not as young as I was during the height of my career, obviously, and I'll never run times close to those times, but I can still set goals that make me feel like I'm doing something that's pleasing to me. And I try to motivate myself through these stories. And if I'm inspiring other people as a result, then that's a bonus. But I think we have to live our lives as fully as we possibly can. You know, I say I'll rest when I dead. And you know, I don't sit still very well. This is a challenge sitting still with all of you for an hour, but I'm just really honored to be in this company. And I think I tell people running is a two-way road. We all inspire each other. We all have inspiring stories to share with one another, whether you're an elite athlete or whether you're just trying it out for size, so to speak. And that's what's so great. And the founding of the TD Beach to Beacon happened because I wanted to give back to a sport and a community that had given me so much. And that's what I made that promise to myself when I came into the darkness of that tunnel in LA. I said, are you capable of carrying the mantle that will come with winning the first women's Olympic marathon? And I said, what are you doing? You got to get to the finish line. And I said, I'll figure it out somehow. And with the support of the community and our sport, it's happening. And that makes your life even more fulfilling when things like that happen.
Patrick and Chris, we have about a minute or two.
Yeah, I think just to get into, you know, setbacks and obstacles, and certainly we've all been dealing with that over the last year. And it's always very challenging. And I think the thing that I try to look at is, you know, what is in the way is the way. So if I'm wanting to get something done and clearly that's not going to happen, you talked about the data, that's the data. It's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do that. This is what I have to do. This is what's in front of me. And if I embrace that, I'm much happier and it motivates me. But if I'm resisting it, then it just creates more resistance. And I think even though I'm isolated right now for the 4 days or whatever I have to do in order to go to the next step, how do I use this wisely? How do I get a workout in? How do I work on the mindfulness? And then how do I keep a sense of community going in a positive way? And I think that's what I try to remember. It's not always easy, but when there's a setback, I try to get back to that attitude in order to stay positive moving through it.
Chris Cassidy, final word.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, I agree wholeheartely, is you don't have to do stuff alone. That's what we reinforce in SEAL training when you're learning, when you're trying to make it through BUD/S, is you know, misery loves company, and you can definitely boost each other along. And if you try to make the slog of life all by yourself, it's a wasted effort, because there's plenty of people that have walked in those same shoes ahead of you, and people that are behind you that you can give assistance to. So just always remember those that love you, your teammates, your community, your parents, and support each other.
Thank you all. What a great class for me. I hope that the students listening in today get at least some ideas in the back of their minds about what they can do today, and also as you're being prepared for life. So when you get out of school and move on, there were some ideas today that might be helpful as you you know, become, you know, not different people, but, you know, live different phases of your life. I got to get a plug in for the Maine Sports Hall of Fame. We do have five $5,000 scholarships that we give away annually. If you're a high school senior in Maine, please check out our website, mshof.com/scholarships. We do an induction ceremony in September. And along with webinars, we do a podcast. We have 3 of them dropped where we interview some of the sports legends in Maine that I think you'll find it interesting. We're doing one a week, so that library will grow. And we hope that you'll keep it in mind, perhaps if you're researching something in Maine sports or something like that, that podcast is there. I want to thank our panelists. What a great hour for me. Appreciate it all so much. So good to see all of you. Good luck in your endeavors. And thanks for joining us here on the webinar of the Maine Sports Hall of Fame.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Bill.
What a tremendous honor to be a
Great.
part of. Very grateful.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
It's fun.